Hey guys, it's Dave Negomoto. Today we'll be reviewing our first production EcoBoost ND swap kit. So going over the differences between a stock ND Miata, obviously motor, but we did retain a lot of the OEM stuff, so that way it's more cost effective. So obviously the OEM ABS module, we still actually retain the OEM PCM. A lot of the functions are still used, like power windows, the power mirrors, all the infotainment stuff, the start stop button, all that good stuff still used through OEM, so it's a lot easier integrated. We did obviously retain factory fuse box and all that stuff. We did add the Ford Motorsport, it's like their control pack kit for this motor. So with this whole motor package, you actually don't have to cut the firewall at all. The only thing we did actually have to cut, trim, modify is the cowling. So with the DI pump from the Ford EcoBoost, it trims through the replaceable cowling under the wipers. It's not really too big of a deal. It's just something that we have to deal with. It's not a big deal to get wet or anything like that. It's all sealed. So being a factory 2.3 crate motor, this car made 308 horsepower and 321 foot-pound of torque at 3,000 RPM. So super quick spooling. Feels like a tractor is what our customer said whenever he drove it the first time. He's like, it is a torque monster for what it is. So with all this stuff, we have our Woolwood master cylinder in the factory location going to the factory ND pedal. We have our Ford ECU, our Mazda ECU, a relocated 51R battery, which is the OEM style, and then our Ford fuse box. So it's all just kind of sitting in there nice and pretty like. Didn't really have to make too many modifications to make these things work and sit in there. We're still using OEM fan, shroud, and coolant reservoir. We're still using the factory vacuum pump for the brakes. So nothing changed with that. All that electronic functions are all still there. So I guess moving on to the underside of the car. So we are using our PWR intercooler on this setup, which is our standard for the EcoBoost swaps. Does a very good job. We showed it in our last video with the red car, but fits in the OEM grill, fits in the OEM bumper, OEM grill if you want it, fits underneath the OEM crash bar, doesn't impede anything. We're still using our factory undershrouding and all that junk. You do have to trim it a little bit just for the boost tubing. It's kind of a normal thing for like HGAS kit or whatever. So with some motor swap kits on these cars, we were still able to use the OEM sway bars. So this car just has the Progress sway bars on it. OEM ones also fit with no impedance or anything like that. It all is nice and wonderful. We were also able to use the OEM subframe, so you don't have to buy extra parts, spend extra money on all that junk. So another cool thing about how well this motor actually fits in the chassis is we do use an OEM Focus RS oil pan, which based on our testing with our big aero car, we don't get any oil starvation with our baffling kit that we put in these. So that's pretty nice. It's a pretty cheap option to put in here. We may end up making an aftermarket one, but it just keeps adding to the cost of the kit, which we're trying to keep down. Another nice thing about these compared to some other swap kits is its factory oil filter relocation to the EcoBoost. So you don't have to get funky adapters or anything. You just run it just like normal, just like OEM. Don't have to worry about anything. And we are using the OEM, which you can't see, OEM Mazda lower motor mounts. So you can keep it as nice and soft as you want for MVH. We just have our aftermarket swap kit uppers that makes all this stuff fit. Moving on to other OEM parts that do fit is all of your little factory subframe braces, the actual subframe itself, and all the OEM exhaust actually still fits with the swap kit. So another one of the swap parts that we made was a downpipe. So this fits to the OEM Ford EcoBoost Turbo, and it bolts right to the factory exhaust. This is actually an aftermarket Goodwin exhaust, which we sell on our website, but it does fit to the factory, which is what we tested with. So you don't have to buy a whole new system. You don't have to re-engineer all that, which you do on other swap kits, which we've realized. So moving on with the whole swap, this is the MT82 out of the EcoBoost Mustang. We've had really good luck with it in our prior testing of running 400 plus foot-pound of torque and 400 plus horsepower and just beating on it. Doesn't have a cooler. It's been a really wonderful transmission. So this is our PPF that we created, which basically holds up the transmission and the diff, which this is a normal thing to do for some reason for the Miatas. They don't have a traditional trans mount that would go across the car. They just have an aluminum brace that basically holds the two together. So we tried to mimic that. It just doesn't make enough sense to hold things up that weren't meant to hold things up. So into the details of this PPF, we get in our FEA testing, we got less than 1 millimeter of deflection with 1,100 foot-pound of torque going through it, which is a downward force. So it's plenty stiff enough, and through our track testing that we just recently did with it, it was wonderful. We didn't have any weird movement or anything like that. So with all of this, we are technically able to use all of the OEM mounts to make the NVH nice and wonderful. So OEM diff mounts and OEM motor mounts are usable if you want a nice street car with 300 foot-pound and a nice manual transmission. So one thing we did have to do to make this big old strong transmission fit in this car is just trim like those little tabs that are on the transmission that have no purpose for us. And we have a video or some pictures that we'll give you. Just cut those off and everything goes right in. It doesn't mess anything up structurally with the transmission or anything, just like little mounting tabs. But moving on from that, we also have a 3-inch aluminum drive shaft that goes from the MT82 to the stock differential. So we were still able to use the little factory duct for the diff. Not sure if it does anything. We did put a temp probe in the diff to make sure nothing's gonna overheat on track. Obviously, OEM driving or road driving is no problem. You can use all the normal stuff. So the only thing we've ever broken with the diff setup was actually an aftermarket diff case, which holds the back of the diff from teetering. That's what holds the whole mounts up, which technically is holding everything up. But yeah, no problems with the OEM diff housing. And we have broken one axle before, and that was the outer stub. And it was really easy to change, and we didn't hurt any hubs, we didn't hurt any diff. So it is a fusible link. And it only happened because we were making a lot of torque and we clutch kicked when we were super gripped up, and that wasn't a great idea. So with the swap kit, we are still using the factory clutch and throttle pedal. So you don't have to do any modifications to your interior. It's all nice and normal, nice and OEM. This customer did elect to have an AIM MXG dash to put in. We are at 2100 RPM at 76 miles an hour. Which is pretty freaking low compared to the normal Miatas. This car is definitely a little more track oriented bump wise, but it's quite quiet, not too rattly, and still has loads of torque with just being in 6th gear. He tracks the car mainly, and it's nice for data logging and all that stuff, but you can still utilize the factory dash. We did get the RPM to work, we did get all the normal functions to work. As you can see, the factory shifter location, no weirdness or anything like that, just a nice, normal OEM car. So with the swap as well, we still have the OEM start-stop button working, so you can just, start your car up, just like normal, no problem. And all of the OEM AC controls also work, just like normal. Yeah, so nice OEM, off, wonderful. So to cap all this off, just going over pricing for everything, because we know you guys are probably gonna have a couple questions. The EcoBoost 2.3 motor from Ford, OEM, new 0-mile motor, which comes with a turbo, a wiring harness, all that good stuff. is about 5,500 bucks, and the MT82 brand new transmission is about 4 grand. We're planning on having our swap kit being around from maybe 12 to 14 or so grand. And we're planning on having that ready done in like end of Q1, possibly beginning of Q2. We're waiting on some electronic stuff to try and finalize everything with that. So, yep, that's pretty much it for our V1 EcoBoost swap kit. So let us know if you guys have any questions, and be sure to like, subscribe, and keep on asking questions. Thank you.